In today's session, we will be exploring the BGG16 CNN model and try to classify images from the fashion immense dataset. Okay, so here are the imports which we'll be doing. I'll just kick off the imports now. And this is the dataset we have. So we'll be classifying each and every image of this in the fashion immense dataset. So we already have the data in the train and test folders. We have the training data in the form of a CSV file of images and the testing data also in the CSV file of images. So what we will do firstly is, since that we have it in the form of a data frame form, it is not a good idea to pass a data frame to a CNN model, especially like some deep one like BGG16. So what we will do here is we will convert each and every of this image into a NumPy array. So before that, we'll just print the train data as the shape. So I have already mentioned it right next to it. So we have 60,000 images of 0,785 dimensions and 10,000 images of the same dimensions. So what you have to do is, this is how the data looks like. So each and every pixel till the final pixel of 784 with a label indicating which type of image it is. See the shapes again, and then what we'll do is we'll now see the number of classes and identify each image. This is by now you must be having the understanding that this single row is an image, right? Pixel 1 to the last one, which is the pixel 784. So each and every one is an image, and what we will now do is we will convert the image into 3-channel image. Basically, since we'll be classifying them as images which of RGB, red, green, and blue format, we will convert them into 3 channels. So for that, we have the NumPy dstack function which does it. So I'll just show you. So this one is depth stack function. So what it does is, if you pass a tuple to the function, something like this, it stacks the arrays in sequence depth-wise. We'll be taking help of this function to convert it into 3 dimensions, each and every image. Okay, it looks like it's done. And since we have a 3-dimensional image data, what we'll now do is we'll reshape each and every image to 28 by 28 pixels. So why 28 by 28 pixels is because after applying dstack, which is depth stack, we have the images of dimension 74 by 3. So 3 is a channel, so let us not worry about that, and let rather focus on this number 784. So if you look at the number 784, it is nothing but the square of 28. Hence, since the images that we are passing always into neural network models, and it's a good practice to follow also, that it is better to make them stay at a square shape rather than any other shape, like rectangle or triangle or anything. So we'll first convert this images into squares of the shape 28 by 28, and 3 indicates the 3-channel RGB color format. So we just do that and convert them. So what we'll now do is we will, since we are using BGG16 model, so one of the prerequisites of BGG16 is that the input shape is 48 by 48. So there is also a way to modify this at the neural network level, but that has certain complications. So what we will do is we will use NumPy's image.resize function for each and every image in trainx. Trainx is nothing but the training data of images, and testx is nothing but the testing data of images. We have the dot resize function here with scaling as false, which means you won't be stretching or doing anything to the image. Basically, the 28 by 28 image will be converted into a 48 by 48 image without scaling it much. So we'll be doing that. It takes a bit of time. Okay, it's done. So what we'll now do is we'll convert the, as of now, the pixels are in integer format, right? So one beauty of neural networks is that they can also understand to a great level the floating point data types. So what we'll do is we will normalize the data by scaling it by dividing by 255 and converting each and every pixel in this image to a floating point number. So we'll just do that. And now that this is done, what we will do is we have y, which is nothing but the target variable, right? So we will take these target variables and apply one-hot encoding upon them. What actually one-hot encoding does, for example, assume these are the classes. So they encode strings, that is a good explanation. For example, these are the classes, let's say 1, 2, 3, 4, okay? So what it does is it converts them into vectors of 1 and zeros, okay? For example, let's say 1. 1 will be now denoted as 0, 1, 0, 0, 0. 2 as 0, 1, 0, 0. So this is all one-hot encoding does. So why we do this is that it will be simpler for the neural network to differentiate between different classes rather than then just put them as 1, 2, 3, 4. So this is also possible, but as a person who works in deep neural networks, it is a good practice to implement the one-hot encoding everywhere you go in classification problems. Okay, so you just apply one-hot encoding upon this. And since it's a regular practice in data science that you split your given data into training and testing, because one set of data to be trained upon and the other set, which the model has never seen before, to validate upon your data. So we'll just do that here. And since the data is big, it takes a couple of seconds. Just take the shapes of each and every of this. And now you have to define a set of parameters, to initialize the VGG16 model. So we'll just do that here. And we have this function called preprocess input from Keras. So what it does is it just processes the input to make it in a Keras readable format. Just do that here now. And create a baseline model for Keras. So it's taking time to download. So these are the weights. So what is special about VGG16 is that this model has already been trained before on some other data set. And when you train a model, right, you'd have the weights are changed. Weights are adjusted so that you get the most optimized result with the least loss and the minimum cost function value. Same thing. We are taking the weights of some other model which is already built, and this model is VG16 in this case. We will now take these weights and apply it across our problem. So basically, we're using another model to be implemented in our model for better performance. So this part also comes across as transfer learning, and you use previously built models to be used in your current problem scenario. Transfer learning and VGG are REST nets, which we'll be exploring later, are all one and the same. So till now we explored deep learning. Now we are exploring the applications of how we can use previously built deep neural networks to get higher precision and better performing models. So this one has already been printed out. This is the model architecture. Just put it out here. So as you can see, the reason why we reshaped the image into 48 by 48 is this. Can you see this clearly? So this is why we, from the existing 28 by 28 image, we converted it to the shape of 48 by 48. And these are the convolutional blocks. We have two here, followed by a pooling block. And similarly, the same sequence follows. 2 convolution, 1 pooling. 3 convolution, 1 pooling. 3 convolution, 1 pooling. And 3 convolution, 1 pooling. But this is the sequence followed by the people who built the VGG16 model. So like this is already built upon a previous existing image classification task. It's not necessary that you have to mug up or by heart this thing, but it is the one important thing is that you must know which model to use when. So now we'll just do the feature extraction. So basically this is the convolutional base model which generates output predictions for the input samples. Nothing but feature engineering partly where you do a small transformation in the data. Just get this done. So basically we are generating features in the sense you already have a few convolutional layers, right? So why we are doing this is to get a better feature for predicting the output. So this is one common feature in transfer learning and applications of deep neural networks. Now that you have a good understanding of how neural networks work, it is time you are applying these in your day-to-day problems. So one other way, like remember we had used a couple of feature generate extractors in text classification problem for SMS text classification. Same way, we'll be extracting features in this problem too. 14 minutes, 40 seconds. I don't know why. This is why people say you require GPUs for deep learning. You can see here. Thought of getting a Colab setup for this, but yeah, since the image is not much. Okay, so what we'll do is I'll just explain the next steps, and once this is done, we'll just get it executing. So firstly, now we'll just save this into NumPy files so that they can be used in the future. You have train features, test features, and all. So we'll be saving this for the future use and then seeing the features. What we will now do is we will take these features and we will build a small model on top of it. We'll be building a model on top of this and trying to classify a correct output. So just show this. So here we'll be doing the compilation of the model once we are done with it. And then these are the callbacks. What means, for example, if the model doesn't learn much after a few iterations, right? So you reduce the learning rate so that you can get a better estimate of what is there in the data. So this is the reduced learning callback function. So reduce LR on plateau means nothing but reduce learning rate on plateau. That means when the data, the learning cost and loss function plateaus out, you reduce the learning rate so that we can get a better estimate, since this may lead to overfitting of the data also. And early stopping. For example, after a couple of iterations, the model doesn't seem to learn anything much from the data and it simply keeps executing. It doesn't serve any purpose. So it is better to stop the model in an earlier stage when you feel that, okay, it has learned properly. There's no use of training the model ahead. So these are one of the two callbacks we'll be using, and apply this across a model. So we'll be doing model.fit. You have the training features and labels, number of epochs, and this is the validation data to be tested upon. And these are the callbacks that we have just defined. And now we'll just print the accuracy and the losses. So that is what we'll be doing here. So I think he explained the entire thing. Okay, this is still running. So just do. So we remember previously we had taken a base model for VGG16. Why we have done that is we will be using this one for feature extraction, right? So in terms of feature extraction, what I mean is that once this model has been previously been trained upon a good data set, right, and the weights have been adjusted and tuned, this means there will be certain features in certain images that most models cannot identify, but VGG16 model can identify them with a high precision. So which is why we have taken the VGG16 base model. And now that we have this base model, we will be using these features to get the features out. This neural network to get the features out of our existing images, which is what we are doing here. So this one is there, right? So you're using convolutional base is nothing but the VGG16 model. And what predicting is the final prediction of the shape 1,512 for each image, which is this. So you'll be identifying 512 different features from this model, which is the 16 model, to generate a feature vector for each image. So we'll be extracting them for training and testing and validation. Okay, now that we are done with this feature extraction part, it will be simply like this for each image, which was like, let us say, so I'll just knock this off. Let us say this is a particular image. All right, yeah, you've got a nice shirt here for classification in fashion image. So what happens is when you pass it to the VGG16 model, right? So I just label it here. It's not a classification model which tells outputs, right? It's like how you have for, this one, random forest, support vector machines and machine learning. So it doesn't give an output directly, but what it rather gives is a set of feature vectors for each image, which is what we are getting. So assume this is a single image, right? Pass to the V16 model. This is the feature vectors it gives. And in this case, it is 512. This is the shape of the output feature vector. Input image shape is 48 by 48. Now, but these feature vectors are like, you can say, gold over normal metals, because these are the essential and important features identified about this image. For example, it can be about its shape. Shape, I mean, not like the dimension of the numpy array, but the actual image shape. For example, you can see this outline of the shirt, right? So this outline can be one of the features. Any other one, you can see these dots within the shirt. The pattern of the dots, you can say. So these are the type of features it identifies. Or if it is like a multicolored one, for example, like this, the color distribution. And many more features with some up to 512 in this image. Like these are the features that we can identify as a human being, but as a neural network, it can identify 100 times more features than we can do. So these are all the features that are identified by the neural network, and we'll be using these set of features as like this, right? For each image, each set of features are like this. Okay. But these are the labels as to each feature means what. It can be a shirt, it can be a pant, it can be a purse, and so on. And we'll be taking the data like this and then pass it into a small neural network that we have built, right? Previously. It's not here. Yes, here. The small neural network that we have built, right? We'll be using this neural network to classify the particular image using the VG16 model as a feature extractor. So first one has a validation accuracy of 59%. So you know what happens in these steps, right? So it keeps doing forward and back propagation till it gets the optimal weights wherein the loss and the cost function are both low, and goes ahead with those weights. From the weights in this step, right? The best weights identified in this step are then transferred to this step, which is why you see, right? The accuracy starts from here. Here it's 59%, 60%. Here it's 62%, and now it's 63%. So it's stepwise. It keeps taking the best weights obtained, weights and biases obtained from the previous step, and goes ahead. So learning happens in this. But drawback of this is that overfitting may happen.
You're going to reduce the learning rate a little bit more to see how it goes. Now, can you see something different? Yeah. One benefit of very low learning rate is that in certain situations, you can achieve better accuracy. As you can see here, right? It has shot up from 69% to 73% just with adding reduced learning rate. Yeah. And it's not overfitting also, especially for a multi-class classification problem. This is a very good accuracy. But what reduced LRM plateau is doing is, as you can see here, again, it's reducing learning rate, right? It feels that, okay, why not reduce this learning rate a little bit more to see how better the model becomes. And that is exactly what it has done here. So its loss has fallen down, as you can see here, right? And accuracy is increased. So it's improving, slowly it's improving with reduced learning rate. And even after now, even after reducing it to smaller notches, the accuracy is just increasing it in a decimal way, like 0.01%. And slowly it stops here. As you can see in the final set of epochs, right? You had set the model to train for 100 epochs, correct? Instead of wasting time and resources, it stopped at once to say that, okay, hey, your model is ready. You can go ahead and do your further analysis. Now that we are done here, we will quickly plot the accuracy and loss charts. So we'll just quickly go ahead this part. And can you look at these charts? First one, let's see, training and validation accuracy. They're comparable, 74, 75%. So this way you can say the model is not overfit. Overfit means the model generalizes a bit too much over the training data. So in such a way that it doesn't perform well upon the validation data. But that thing we are not seeing in our model, okay? Which is a very good thing. And moving on, we have the training and validation loss. The loss is low in both training and accuracy validation, and they're comparable. This thing says that, okay, you have built a very good model. Now this model is good to go for the use in the outside world. So that is what it has happened.